Listen everyone, I'm back again, and it is time for a new project. This time, we're doing something that was actually one of my first cars. So another build series, we are building this time something that's gonna be more of a toge car slash drift car. Not really a drift car. The intentions of this are to go have some fun in the local mountains and then even be able to go and daily drive the damn thing. I'm kind of tired of building full-blown race cars because like, it's really fun, but then they turn into cars you can never drive. So this is gonna be a project that we can drive. On top of that, a couple of awesome sponsors have jumped on to support this series. One of those guys being AK Integrated Auto Works, all the way in Virginia Beach, Virginia. They have a lot of parts that are available for this particular swap. We're gonna be using almost everything that they make for this swap. So if you guys wanna follow along on what we're doing and you wanna take on this project yourself, you like it, you think it's cool, make sure you hit those guys up. Without further ado, the E30. I'm way more excited. Cheers. Well, as you can see, it needs a ton of work. It's a big pile of crap right now. It's got a stock M20 in it. It's an automatic transmission car. It's pretty much bone stock. There's really nothing done to this car at all. One of the things that you guys know what the E30 is notorious, or maybe you don't know, is that the front oil pan hangs down too damn low. Now with the oil pan hanging down so low, the previous owner had been driving this car, smacked the oil pan, broke the oil pan, and then they tried to fix it, ended up tearing the oil pan off, tearing the oil pickup, the oil pump, all that stuff off the car. So essentially, I bought somebody else's project car. Started gutting the interior because I think they wanted to do some stuff. Really what I need with this car is the bare shell. Everything else we're gonna end up taking apart, getting rid of. But before we could do any of that stuff, we gotta wash this car and clean the inside out. So I'm gonna start tearing into this thing, cleaning it up, and at some point we're pulling that M20 out. It's junk for what we wanna do. And then we can get into what motor we picked for this thing. Have you ever seen like the Mexican, you know you have like the attachments to put soap in here? The Mexican wash gun? Yeah. You ever seen that online?
Pour the soap inside the hose.
Pour the soap in the hose, yeah. And then put the gun on. Mexicans. Major step in starting a project is just going to be washing the car, so get all this dirt off of it. So it's not too bad on the paint. Again, something I think could get buffed. You can see all these heavy like water spots that are in here, and the clear coat can potentially be buffed. But now that the outside's pretty much cleaned up as far as like how much I want to do for now, we need to address the interior of this car. Rough plan, completely gutted, 2 bucket status seats, harnesses, a digital PDM to control all the switches and stuff, obviously a hold fast steering wheel, roll cage, and hopefully a sound bar as well in this thing. And then we're also going to throw a tilt and pedal assembly in here just to kind of go above and beyond and make this extra sick. For now, it is time to empty out all this trash. It's pretty simple to gut these cars. There's not a lot to it. 3 tools I highly recommend for removing tar. 1, a heat gun. I think this is a Harbor Freight one. You heat it up, kind of melts the glue below it. Then to scrape the tar off, I use one of these like 3M styled vinyl like squeegees. A couple of reasons, like 1, it's still strong enough to lift up the tar, but 2, this soft edge doesn't scratch any of the paint. So all this paint that's black, like this was covered completely in tar. Now it's all smooth. This thing helps a lot. We use some Goo Gone to spray on there, let it marinate for a bit, and then this stuff kind of strips it off. But that's kind of enough for now on the interior. We'll dive back into that once we get some parts in. Next thing to do is pull apart this engine bay. So the E30 comes with this engine. It's called the M20. This one is a 2.5 liter. They come in 2.7 as well. So this being an IS model, it came with the 2.5. Now this engine's still a really good engine, don't get me wrong, but for what I want to do, this just isn't going to cut it. And exactly what is this car being built for? Partially because of the nostalgia of me owning one of these a long time ago and it being my first car. So that's one reason why I want to build it. The second reason I want to build it is to go back and like do some toge stuff and go back to the mountains and go do some driving, because that's what I did with my E30. I used to go race it up in some local mountains. So all the toge stuff I really want to get back into, and I have a few drift cars. One's in the works right now that's being built, and then we already built the rally car. So when this opportunity came up, I couldn't pass it because I really missed this chassis. The big question now is, what engine are we going to put into it? So with this car going in the mountains, the engine that we wanted to throw in here had to be a special one. I was going to do a K series, but didn't really work out. The engine that we actually are going to throw into here has a very, very rich racing heritage. An engine that has won rally championships, super GT championship. I believe it also has some drift championships under its belt. Known as one of the greatest engines in the history of time. Also, they took a Supra in the Super GT class and they removed the 2JZ from it, and they put this engine in there and they made it rev to the moon and do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's arguably better than a 2J. That's up to you guys. I'll let you guys fight in the comment section. I don't really care, but without further ado, the Toyota Beams. So this is a 3S GE. It's a Generation 5, so a G5 motor. A couple of friends knew that I wanted to do this build. They saw this motor for sale on a guy's story. They hooked me up with him. I worked a deal with that guy. Shout out to John in Radical. Helped me get this motor, and here it is now. So this engine actually came with some sick parts, and we'll jump into those. He also threw in some super dope headers. With some fat primaries. They're actually bigger than my Pro car, which is kind of embarrassing. My boy Javier shot me a TOYOTA radiator, and then this is the cool part that the engine came with. This is a ATS clutch. They're big in Japan. They have a lot of heritage in Japan. It's only rusty because I sprayed down the motor in the engine bay, and I totally forgot that this was just sitting there. It has a 3-puck disc in here, and this clutch is actually worth a ton of money. I was very surprised. I did not know that getting it from him, but it came with a super dope clutch. Now it's unsprung, so we're worried about the 6-speed that the Beams comes with. Luckily we have our boys over at Tilton, and we'll put a delay valve in it, and that should help keep it alive, just like the 4-seater beaters ZF is staying alive with the aggressive clutch that it has. So now that you guys know which engine we're going to be putting in it, which is the Beams engine, we need to get this M20 out of here. There's not a lot of stuff in here that we're going to be keeping. Because we have a Tilton pedal assembly, we're going to be getting rid of the master and the booster. We're going to be pulling the entire engine out, potentially pulling out the windshield wiper stuff. So this engine bay should be pretty clean. With an OEM TOYOTA radiator going back in here, I still will maintain this factory reservoir. I'll probably try to clean it up or maybe replace it with a fresh one. And then we have to figure out a little bit of routing with the radiator hoses. That's pretty much it. I'm super stoked on this build. I've been wanting to build an E30 for quite some time now. The K series wasn't necessarily a bad idea, but the Beams just has a cool heritage behind it. Also, the AK boys make pretty much everything you need to throw this motor into this car. So from a harness, engine mounts, transmission mounts, and even the header, they have almost everything we're gonna need to put this motor into this car with the 6-speed that comes with the Beams, which is very exciting because this motor gets 33 miles to the gallon, I think, on highway or something like that. So even daily in it with that extra gear is going to be really nice. For now, before we get too far ahead, it's cool because their products work with like Condor products. Anyways, before we get too far ahead, M20, no mas.
The next day.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The engine bay is pretty clean. The cleaner we use like kind of leaves this weird film on here, but it's going to eventually get all wiped down and cleaned up and whatnot. Shout out Blurred Man. Thank you for helping me get all this out. Frankie and Anthony also swung by and helped us pull the motor. It's time to get into like the planning of the build and exactly what we want to do. So as you know, the Beams is going to go in here, but because I have the Tilton pedal assembly, I want to remove that master cylinder, and then we have this power steering reservoir, and then I want to get rid of this ABS unit as well. Along with wanting to put a hydro in here, I'm going to have to pretty much figure out where this front line here comes across and meets this front line over here, and then I'll tee those together and go into a master, and then the same thing with the rear. There's still a few more things to remove, but all in all, a lot of progress for being what, this is day 2 of us just working on this car, getting to like a really good base on where I want to be. With that being said, I really hope you guys are as excited about this project as I am. You know, like I said, Javier's building the exact same car. Literally, they're both 90s. I'm super stoked on this project. Again, huge shout out to the supporters and the sponsors who are helping present this series to you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. With that being said, stay safe. I just want to come in here and say thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If you like the content, leave a like. It helps us out big time with the algorithm. Also, Black Rifle has offered you guys 15% off of your first purchase, and our boys over at Radical Firearms also offered 15% off. So go ahead and use code Micah Diaz, all capital letters. Don't miss out on any of the content. Hit that subscribe button, boys. Stay safe, boys.